Okay, so we're back with Module C of the Revit primer. Let's just jump right in. We're going to start with roofs. So let's go to working top of roof. We can see the outlines of the roof here, and this is pretty straightforward. What is this element here? I'll take a look to try to figure out what that is. Maybe it's just like I don't know if it's a skylight or something like that, but we'll figure it out. But let's just start with the roof, and I'm just going to go to roof. Really straightforward. But you know what? I'm sorry. Before we do that, let's get the thickness of the roof. Let's go to our elevation and check this here. We'll keep it simple. We won't do this detail for now. But we'll go here. 1 foot. Oh yeah, so it was 1.5 feet, which is what we kind of called it. 1 foot and 1/2 inch. So let's go back to working top of roof. I can click on roof. I'm going to show you something kind of the wrong way to do it at first, but let's go to edit type, duplicate. Let's call this 12.5 inches just to keep it the right. Okay. Click OK. And roofs are kind of funky. There's a lot of different ways to do it. The first way, which I'll show you, is you don't want to have any offset. Define slope, I'm going to leave that checked on because I want to show you something. But if I click and drag this and click OK, we've got our roof. It's cutting weird. The reason it's cutting weird is if I go to a 3D view, it actually created a little roof like that. And it actually created it above the top of roof. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click that, and I'm going to have it say negative 12.5 inches to make sure that it's where we want it to be. And like I said, these are kind of funky, right? And the reason is if I go back to the top of roof and I click on this, that defines slope, that little thing there means that from that line, it'll slope up. So if I want to create this type of 4-sided pitch roof, I don't even know what it's called, that's how I would do it. If I actually click on this and turn off define slope and click OK, I'll get a really funky looking roof that looks like this. And you can actually click and play with the pitch there. You can adjust the slope by doing that. If I come and turn off this define slope, I'll get that. If I come and I turn off this define slope, I will get a shed roof. That's again got like a tremendous pitch because this slope is really high. You know, if we make this like a 312 pitch, it'll do that. That's one way of editing it, is by coming in here and doing this. But this actually, we don't want it to pitch at all because it's a flat roof. So I'm just going to click on this here, turn off that define slope, and click OK. And now if I go to a side view, it should sit nicely where I want. The reason it was thicker before is because the thickness of the roof is being cut at an angle, and therefore it's wider at the edges. Now, there's all sorts of ways to do funky different roof designs, like changing the rafter cuts and things like that. Again, because what you guys are going to be doing is mostly going to be contemporary flat roof, or probably curved or something wild. We don't want to get too deep into kind of like rafter cuts and things like that, but there are a ton of ways to look at that and to do those things. And in a later session, we'll cover things like extrusion by face, how to add soffits and gutters and things like that. But to kind of show you the way to do this, you know, the easy way without going through all of that back and forth like I did is you can just go to the top of roof. I'm going to click on roof, roof by footprint. I'm going to turn off define slope. And I can draw this from there to there. So now it's a flat roof. It might be high. Yeah, it's high because I don't have this base offset from level, negative 12.5 inches. You can also define the top of the wall as your level and then just build up from there. But I like to define the top of the roof. All right, so now we've got our roofs on. It's pretty straightforward. And similarly to, if I want to cut that hole out, similar to the floor, all I do is click on this, go to edit footprint, and come here, add that cut in. So there we go. I'm ashamed I don't know what that element is. I've got to take a closer look at the building. But we've got that all set. Now you can do things like adding points and modifying sub-elements. If you look at this roof plan, you see it's actually got these pitches to the downspouts. I think it might go through the columns actually. I'm not 100% sure. It might drain through the columns, but we're not going to get into that today, but you can start to do those things by modifying the points, adding points, and adding like split lines, so you can start to actually have subtle pitches and things like that, or create a more complexly modeled geometry. The next thing I'm going to do is ceilings. Again, this is why I kind of like to work in plan and section. So here what I'll do is I'm going to do it from the roof. Let's see if this will work. Or actually, let's do it from level 1. If we want to put a ceiling in this room, let me actually go to just level 1. Let's say I want to put a ceiling in this room. I can just click on ceiling. And again, I'm just going to do generic because we're not really going to keep it. It's pretty cool because it does automatic ceiling. It knows that there's walls, and I can just click there, and it'll create a ceiling that's 8 feet there, a ceiling that's there. Alternatively, I could sketch the ceiling by same way we do floors and things like that. Ceilings are kind of important when you start putting lights and things like that. You need something to host the light in, and usually the light looks for a ceiling. But in general, a lot of times the roof buildup or the floor buildup incorporates the ceiling material, depending on the type of construction and things like that. So it's just something to be aware of. Or you might have exposed ceilings, right? You might have a steel frame with fireproofing or painted underside with exposed ceilings, or a concrete slab or something like that. And then you have to figure out a different way to get your lights hosted. But again, the ceilings are pretty valuable for that. What I'll show you is if I look here, I can't see those things. But I might just take this section and slide it up just for the sake of being able to illustrate it. So there's my ceiling. It's 8 feet from the ground. And I can change the offset of the level there, and it will adjust. So ceilings, very straightforward, very easy, and so on. All right. The next thing we want to talk about is stairs. So we only have the one stair at the front here. And let me go to the working. And actually, does the front elevation show it? I don't think it does. But let's get some information about our stairs, because we need to build a family that's going to help us do this. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to measure the depth of this. This is 1'2". Again, let's just call it 1'2.5" for the sake of simplicity. And if I go to this elevation, or let me go to the, I think it's being hidden by, yeah, my CAD's being hidden once again. So I'll show you a little trick, which is the filter component. Will this work? Yeah. So if I can't find an element, one good way to do it is to just do this crossing selection. Then the filter down here is great because it allows you to filter your selection. I just want to get that Barcelona right. Click OK. And I'm going to take this and make this a foreground. And now I can see it. So I had, I've forgotten my stringer width. So 1 foot 2.5. And then if I go back to this elevation and I can click on it just to get to it, I've got a, let's call it 6.5 inch rise. So we're going to create a stair that does this. And so let's go back here. I'm going to just start with a stair. And I'm actually going to start with a monolithic stair, which is more of just a precast concrete. I'm going to go to edit type, and I'm going to, call this monolithic stair Barcelona. Click OK. And I want my minimum tread depth to be 1 foot 2 inches. And I want my maximum riser height to be 6.5 inches to make sure that I get what I want. And then the width, that's okay. A lot of this is for code compliance, so it'll set these as minimums. Modeling existing stairs is a little tricky. This is really good for trying to figure out how stairs go from floor to floor. The defaults that it gives you is basically IBC standard. So if you start there, it's a good place, especially if you're not trying to do an ornamental stair, you're just trying to do like a fire stair or a code compliance stair. That's the good way to do it. Okay, so let's just set this for now, and if we want to change it, we can. I usually like to just kind of draw my stair. And my base level, I actually want it to be ground. My top level is going to be level 1. So it's going to tell me how many risers I need, and so on. So I want my tread depth to actually be 1 foot 2.5. And the risers it's going to figure out. So I click and I actually just drag this, and it doesn't get me all the way there. My tread depths are pretty accurate. But here, look, I can take this and I can drag this and I can drag this, and let's just start there. I'm going to click OK. And let's go to our section to kind of try to evaluate what's going on here. All right, so first to put a railing on it, I can actually just click on that and delete it. It will default put a railing on it, which is actually usually pretty helpful. But it's starting at the right place where we want it. I believe what's happening, if I go to the elevation, the right elevation, is that my tread depth here let me just double check this. It's a little bit more than 6.5. So maybe let's just edit this and say the maximum riser height is, let's say, 7 inches. Or let's call it 6 3/4. There's something about it's not going to. Sorry about that. Like I said, stairs are a little tricky. For some reason, I'm getting like 1 too few, and it's something to do with the height here, because this is not. If I change this to desired number of risers 9, is it me or is this not? Sorry, there's something just strange going on with the heights. Get to see me troubleshoot in real time here. Because that's the wall. This is here. Because this here is a full 9 inches above. So why is this stopping low? Level 1. I'm going to pause quick and come back. Okay, so I'm back, and I think the way I'm going to resolve this is, as I was mentioning earlier, sometimes you got to kind of force Revit into doing what you want it to do, doing what you need it to do. And so I've moved the stair back to the where it's supposed to sit there, and I'm just going to go to this section, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the top offset here. It was 0. And you see that it has desired number of risers, actual number of risers 8. I'm going to actually change this to like 6 inches. Start there. It says desired number of risers 9, actual number of risers 8. So I can click on this stair and actually drag it one extra step like that. And then I can click on this. Or no, I can finish that, and then I can kind of tweak this top offset to maybe be like 5 inches. Let's see what happens. Or actually, let's make it 4 inches, 3 inches, 2 inches, to get it to be the height of what we want it to be. So it might actually be, this might be 0. But now the height, we just added a riser to it. Yeah, and it's at that 6 and change dimension that we need it to be at. Or no, it's kind of close. But anyway, it's close enough for what we want to do here. Like I said, you got to kind of try to like cheat Revit sometimes to get it to do what you want it to do, especially for like existing conditions and things like that. So let's just say that that's where we're good with that. So now we've got our stair, and we've made our custom monolithic stair there to fit into place. The next thing I'll show you is placing things like toilets and fixtures. Again, we're going to stick with generic stuff for now, but there's lots of different ways you can customize these things. These doors are not even in yet, so I'd like you to make sure those are in there. But I'm going to start placing things like sinks and toilets. I'm going to use generic families as well. We can talk about making custom families and sourcing custom families at a later date, but the generic stuff is good for now. So I'm just going to go into, again, insert, load Autodesk family, and then I can go into sinks, or sorry, it's in plumbing fixtures, plumbing, and then we can just type in sink here. So let's just do just a sink, single. A lot of these are meant to be mounted within a vanity or something like that. Let's see if we can find something a little better. Let's start with the toilet, actually, because this is like a commercial wall-mounted toilet. This looks like it's probably, you know what, let's just say it's wall-mounted. So let's do a toilet, load that, and then I can go back into architecture, and this time I'm just placing a component. So if you're trying to place something that doesn't fall into one of these categories, it's probably buried in component. So I can click on that, and now I can come down and I can do that's wall mounted toilet, and then it's going to look for a wall to mount to. There it is. We just created a nice wall mounted toilet. This will be in 3D. You can see it because I didn't put that glass in there yet. And it's just that easy. Now let's find a good sink. What I would recommend is going to BIM object. This is a good starting point. The thing with BIM object is that the families are usually vetted pretty well before they go up here. So you don't have to worry about really, really messy families and things like that. Other sites are kind of a free-for-all, and actually manufacturers are a little bit of a free-for-all as well. A lot of times manufacturers will just model in one platform like Rhino or SketchUp and then export into all different other things, and the families are really messy. And if you're doing a 50-story building and you have 5 toilets or 10 toilets on each floor, now you have 500 toilets in your model that are drastically not optimized and would cause lots of issues and are hard to edit and things like that. So let's try to find a wall mounted sink here. So let's go to sink. So let's go to, well, this actually, of course, looks new to me. This is not the old interface. I'll allow it to use my LinkedIn for now. It's free to sign up and everything's free to download, but it seems like it might be a little bit challenging to there's lots of stuff in here, lots of stuff to sort through. It's funny that. All right, so here's some good like Revit. Is this wall mounted? Yeah. So let's use this. So we're going to download this. I want to just get the Revit, and it's an RFA, which is a Revit family. Download selection. And then I can come into here, go back into my level 1. Same thing, I'm going to go to, there's a few ways to load the component. I'll show you a different way to do it. I can go to here, click on component, and I can go to load family rather than using that Autodesk one. I'll check my downloads. You probably want to file this away somewhere, but for today, I'll just use this. Bring this in. If it's an old model, it's going to upgrade the family. Okay. I can hit spacebar to rotate it. Place it there. The elevation from the level right now is 0. Let's just make it, I forget what code is, but we'll just make it 30 inches for now. And there's our little sink. There it is in 3D. So now we've got a nice wall-mounted sink. And you can explore that website. There's lots of good things on there. The one thing to note is that once the family is in the model, it's there forever. It doesn't link back to the server or anything like that. So while you do probably want to file things away nicely, it's not like InDesign where if the link moves, it'll break. Once the family is in here, it's in here forever. And now that model exists within my components here. All right. So there's my sink. Um, the next thing that I want to show you is what's called an in-place family. So in-place families are very good for one-off elements. You don't want to use them for things in which uh, you need to use multiple times. So this chair, for example, because there's a whole bunch of this chair, I would not make it an in-place family. And we'll make those chairs custom in a second. But this bench here, there's only one of this bench in the whole project. So that's a perfect opportunity for an in-place family. You will get yourself in a lot of trouble if you make an in-place family and then copy it a bunch of times. It is then impossible to edit as a batch. It's impossible to go in and change a parameter of that once it's been copied as an in-place family. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to component here, and I'm going to go to model in place. And the first thing it's going to ask me, what do I want to use? And we haven't really talked too much about different parameters and different family types and things like that. We will get into that. But it's important to categorize it properly. Because if it's furniture, you may not want it to show up on a framing plan, but you do want it to show up on a furniture plan. So if you don't label this properly, it's going to be very hard to filter later. Also, some of the parameters that get built in will have be associated with families and might be helpful, but for the purposes of this, we don't need to worry about that. So I'm going to click furniture, and I will call this oversized bench. And then what I'm going to do is go to extrusion, and I'm going to then come here, do this, and like I said, well, you know what? Let me take a step back. You first are in the family creation, in the model creation, right? Then you have to create geometry within it. And so within this create tab, you can do things like extrude, cut voids, revolve, blend. This is how you start to create complex shapes. This is a very, simple geometry. So let's just start with the overall extrusion there. Let's say we wanted to start 18 inches off the floor, and then we want it to end 24 inches off the floor. I'm going to click that. So now we've got our extrusion, and I want to create all these little elements that go below it. So I'm just going to create another extrusion, which is here. I want this to start at 0, and I want it to end at 1'6" so that it goes to the underside of that. And I'm going to click OK. And then I can actually come in, grab that, and let me see if I change this to I want to try to just quickly change this to wireframe so I can grab that. I can actually copy that element within the family creation so I don't have to model it over and over again. All right, so let me change this back. Then I click Finish Model. And look, now I've got my custom bench. And this is a family. So this is its own element. It's called Oversized Bench. If you check the lower left-hand corner, it says Oversized Bench. Now I can push and pull these handles if I want to, but I probably want to try to avoid that, so I could lock this. Then I can't edit it. But now I have this custom thing. It's a family. Little quick preview of visibility stuff, but here it is. It's a piece of furniture. When I get into visibility graphics, like we've seen a couple times, and I turn off furniture, it will disappear. So that's how we make sure that things are categorized properly, stuff like that. Now, like I said, in-place families, use them sparingly. If I was to copy this a bunch of times and then change the size of it, if I wanted to change the size of it, it wouldn't impact all of them. It would only impact one of them. So that's what we don't want. All right. So the next thing is creating basic families, like let's say that chair. That chair, I'm going to make it really simple, but it's about 2'3" by 2 feet wide. Let me just write that down before I forget. 2 feet wide. But I want to be able to propagate that all over. I don't want to do an in-place family. So I have to create a new family. And in order to do that, I'm going to close out all these windows so I don't get confused between everything I have open. And go to File, New, Family. So a Revit project, as you can see up here, is a .rvt file. A family is a .rfa file. So it's different family type, it's a different file type, but it can go into project files. So families can go into projects. Families can go into other families, which can go into other families, which can go into projects. A project file can't go into a family. So it's important that if you want to create something that can get nested into something else, you use that family structure. So I'm going to go into my English Imperial, and I'm going to create another piece of furniture. As you can see, there's lots of different things in here. But let's start with a furniture. So here's my furniture. I'm going to click open. This is now like a mini Revit project, but it doesn't have the same tabs here. So, if I close this out and I go to working level 1, you can see the tabs here are different than these. Within a family, I can't do the same things. But let's start creating our little chair. So it's important to think about where the origin is relative to everything else. I'm going to create an extrusion, and I'm going to come down here, and let's say I want the chair facing forward. The back of the chair is on the origin, and then it's centered on the line. So it's 2 foot across the front, 2 feet, right? And then the depth here was 2'3". And then I want to make sure I've got it centered on there. So I'm going to take all this, I'm going to move this, set it there. Now, if I go to an elevation, similarly, I'm going to just click OK. So I have my extrusion. I can set the start and end. Let me just get a typical standard. It's about 18 inches for standard seat height. So let's just call this then, the end is 18 inches. And let's say it's like 3 inches thick. So let's just say 1 foot 3 inches. So now I've got my little base of my seat. I'm looking at the left of it, so let's create a back for it, and let's just give it like a slight angle. So I'm just going to do create an extrusion. Let's just give it like a little 3-inch back. For the sake of quickness, I'm just going to kind of copy this up at an angle like that. Connect them. Then finish that extrusion. And if I go back to my reference level, I can see here's that geometry. I'm just going to extrude it across there, pull it across there. Now I have a nice little seat with a back. And I have to make the legs. So let me go back to the reference level. Create extrusion. Let's make little 2 foot by 2 foot legs. 2 inch by 2 inch. Go there. Let's go back to the reference level. The side elevation. And I'm going to pull this up to there. And then go back here and just copy this bunch of times. So yeah, so there's my chair. Not the most elegant looking chair, but it'll do for now. I think I can just pull this in a little bit. You can sculpt it a little bit if you want. I'm going to save this because it's important for naming. So let me just call this custom chair. And then I can go load into project and close, and it'll basically then take this chair, put it in the project, and now I can place it here. And if I hit spacebar, it'll rotate around the origin, which is the back. And looks like my measurements were slightly off, but now I've got these chairs that I can place. And I can always go, oh, well, I had that back. I think the back was angled, so maybe that's why. But I could take that. If I want to mirror that across, I can do mirror, draw axis, and then do that. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to do copy. So mirror, draw axis, make sure I click copy. And now I've got my two chairs. And I can start to copy and propagate those chairs all over. And then if I go back to my level 1 plan, I've got my custom chairs there. All right. So the last thing I'm going to do is create this custom cruciform column, which is a little bit more detailed. So if I go to my working level 1, I've got my columns here. A standard column, if I go to architecture column, let's just use a I'm going to load in just a basic column. Or let's start by trying to do a new family. English Imperial column. Here it is. All right. So it has these depths and widths associated with them, which I'll show you how you can sort of leverage those in a second. Let's make a parametric cruciform column. So I'm going to start with an extrusion, and let's just make it, we'll make it so it's like ½ inch off here. Let's say it's like 1 inch wide, so we'll do ½ inch by ½ inch. And then I'm just going to take this, mirror this. I'm going to do pick axis, and I can pick that. Then I can take these, mirror them, pick axis there. Okay. Now, what we didn't do before, which I'll show you what we're going to do here, is we're going to take these and actually lock these ends to the depth and the width. And this is, like I said before, already set up for us. So in order to be able to adjust the depth and the width of this column, we've got these parameters built in that already do that for us. So to kind of walk you through how that works is if I click on here and go into family categories and parameters, or no, I'm sorry, it's family types. I already have these parameters in here for width and depth. So if I change this to 1 foot and I change this to 1 foot, it actually shrinks it all down. So let me undo that, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to align this to there and lock it. Then I'm going to align this to there and lock it. Then I'm going to align this to there and lock it. Then I'm going to align this to there and lock it. And look at this, and let's look at this from a side view, because I want this to also be constrained to the upper reference level, so that if the height changes, the column will change. And I'm going to also constrain it to the lower reference level. But if I look at this in 3D, and I come in here to my family types, and I make this 1 foot and hit apply, it pulls in there. And if I make this 1 foot and hit apply, it pulls in there. So now I've got my custom cruciform column, which should automatically constrain to the levels I set it to, and it should also be able to be adjusted if I want to customize it a little bit. So again, I'm going to save this. I'm going to call it cruciform column, and then I'm going to load it into the project and close, and I'm going to place it here, and I'm going to set this to me by base level is level 1. My top level is top of roof, but then it's minus 12.5 inches so that it goes directly to the underside. I believe I should be able to actually align this to there because it knows where the center line of these is, the column. And if I wanted to, go to edit type, and I could change this down to like 6 inches by 6 inches, which gets it closer to being the size that we want it to be. So now I can just take this column and copy this over. From that center line to there. And just to kind of illustrate this for you, I'm going to go to click on this roof and click down here and go to hide element. So now I can just temporarily hide it. You don't want to right click and go to hide element, hide in view. You'll lose it forever. It's kind of hard to find after you do that. But if I do it that way, then I still have them. Now here are my columns, right? The important thing to note is because it's a type parameter, if I click on edit type and I change this to 12 inches and hit apply, both of them change. So that's why that relationship, as I was talking about, if you copy this multiple times, you can go back and easily edit it. If I did it as an in-place family, like this one, I would not be able to maintain that relationship. Okay, so that's it on some basic parameter stuff and some basic families and some more modeling. For the final video for this first session, we're going to talk a little bit about just kind of getting the files organized, some basic visibility, and setting up sheets for printing, and then how to upload things to BIM 360.